If you put a 16-year-old on $950 per week on today's standards for their first year in an apprenticeship, you're going to see an entire generation of kids excited to start a trade. They're not just cheap labour, they've actually shown an interest themselves to step forward and apply to enter that trade. They've gone and tried to find you to sign up. They trusted you to become an apprentice, to learn the trade. So don't let them down. Hi, my name's Chris and I live in Australia. And it's being said in Australia right now that there's just not enough tradies. They're saying there's a tradie shortage. There's not enough tradies to go around. And in today's video, I'm going to have a talk about it. In Australia, we have politicians grandstanding out on stage saying there's not enough tradies. But the thing is, these politicians, the closest they get to tradies and understanding tradies is dropping their cars or their luxury cars into a mechanic. It's going to a bakery and ordering food from a baker or a butcher. It's calling up their builder and asking how much long till my next investment property is done. That's as close as our politicians get to the tradies. They're so distanced out, so disconnected from it. Our politicians have law degrees, they have economics degrees, they have arts degrees. Maybe they can tell us the legal definition of a hammer, or they can tell us how a hammer being swung impacts the GDP of a country. Maybe they can paint a picture of a hammer for those on the arts degrees in the system right now. But the thing is, these politicians, if you ask them to swing a hammer, they wouldn't know where to start with it. Our politicians have a focus on immigrating people in from overseas to the trades, as opposed to focusing in on home, the citizens, the young people who are the future of this country, and giving them the support they need to become the future tradies, the future builders of this country. So let's have a look. Where are we at with it all? We're going to focus on the future of Australia, the apprentices starting up in Australia and trying to move forward. And we're going to have a look at the problems that they're facing, the reasons why we're struggling right now getting the future builders of our country set up. So what's the current stance? Well, about half of our apprentices in this country are dropping out. So let's start at one of the big ones, junior wages. So under Australia's current workplace laws, juniors can be paid significantly less than someone who's a little bit older. It's outdated, and someone who's a junior, we're talking 16, 17 years old, someone who's young like that can be paid significantly less than someone who's just a few years older for doing the exact same job. And this is causing a lot of stress for people who want to start out and pick up a trade. The junior wages is one of the key factors that's pushing our young people to their breaking points. The pay is a big thing. How can you get young people into the trades when their pay doesn't even cover their cost of living? They simply can't survive on what they're being paid. Rents are skyrocketing, grocery prices are at record highs, petrol costs keep rising. Young people want to enter the workforce, to start to build their own independence, but currently the money's just not there for it. If you want more apprentices and more tradies in the future, you have to pay the young apprentices more. You have to make it enticing to where high school students who are 14 go, next year when I turn 15, I'm going to start an enrollment in a pre-trades course at TAFE. So when I hit 16, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to jump straight into the workforce and pick up my apprenticeship. It needs to be exciting, guys. It needs to be enticing for them, because the paychecks are shocking right now. They're between $500 to $600 a week for full-time work. And this is causing them to start to listen to the schools and the university industrial complex, where they say, well, mate, it's a little bit iffy out there on the trades. Maybe stick it out. Maybe get to grade 12. Maybe try get into university. Maybe pick a course. Try your hand at university. What do you have to lose? But aside from that giant HECS debt, that's the uni's incentive, of course. But they try to get them across, staying there longer, try and get more university enrollments, where the reality is, this young person out there, they could be very well fit for trades, and trades could be the right thing for them to do. They could get set up at 16, they could hit the workforce at 16, they could have the best job of their lives at 16, but they've got this doubt in their mind because they're wondering if they can afford to do it, they're wondering if they're going to have their independence to do it when it comes to financially, and they've got that big industrial complex from the universities and schools saying, maybe try university. Have you thought about an arts degree? But What the fuck's the point of an arts degree, man? Like, why do they even offer that stuff? What jobs does it lead to aside from being an art teacher? A lot of the B-roll that I'm using across this video is from a channel called Only Frames. It's a guy, he's a chippy in Australia, and he's down on the ground, on the tools, and he's talking about the problems that the trades industries are facing. Go check out his channel if you want to hear what the trades are dealing with on the ground. In the 1970s and 80s in Australia, it would be surprising if 1 in 4 boys made it to grade 12 in the classroom. They were reaching 16 and entering the workforce. Many of them were entering trades on apprenticeships. So in current times in Australian classrooms, 3 in 4 boys are reaching grade 12 as opposed to 1 in 4 boys back in the 70s and 80s. 52% of the cohort is then moving off into university. So that's an extra half a cohort or half a grade of young men who are not going to the trades anymore, but going to university instead. It's the university industrial complex right now, guys. They are pushing it at the schools. The universities are screaming for it. Stick to grade 12, come to university, rack up your HECS debt, pick a liberal arts degree, learn to finger paint or whatever the fuck, mate. I don't know. Pay us $30,000 a year for 4 years and we'll teach you how to finger paint, we'll teach you gender language, and maybe after 4 years at university and $120,000 a HECS debt, you can get a job at Starbucks. How's that sound? Mate, that's what young kids are getting pushed towards. They're getting pushed towards this stuff. It doesn't make sense anymore. That's the problem we're facing. That's the realism. Currently, these junior wages for apprenticeships are not enough. In 2024, 83.3% of trade non-completers were employed after abandoning their apprenticeships or traineeships. That is according to the latest data from the National Centre of Vocational Education Research. It's not that they're useless. 83% of these people are moving straight into another job that's paying more. They're keen to work, they want to work, they just need more pay. And if they got more pay in the trades, they'd probably be a lot more happier, wouldn't they? A lot of them would stick it out if the pay was much better in apprenticeships. The government is trying to import tradesmen via skilled occupation lists, either already qualified or there's visa pathways if you can secure an apprenticeship. This will never solve the trade shortages because what it does, it creates a constant reliance on immigrating more people in to fill the skill shortages over and over instead of focusing in on our existing citizens, our young people in this country, and giving them the skills to fill the bases that we need. As they pull more and more and more and more people across into Australia and mass immigration continues, well, it could be argued that a lot of these people are not tradesmen, and a lot of these people aren't builders for the country. A lot of these people don't have a trade as a butcher or as a baker or anything like that that's actually applicable across here in Australia. Maybe they've had a year work experience doing it and they got through the shortcut holes on it, but it's creating more demand. The vast majority of people coming to Australia are not in trades. And when they're not in trades, creating more and more demand for these services to be done. So it's almost like a perpetual loop. We're not giving the people in the country the skills that they need to cover the shortages the country requires, and we're just pulling more and more people in, and a lot of the people don't have the skills to provide through, so it's causing more and more demand on the system, and it's just fuck, dude, it's just this perpetual loop. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? This is insanity. What is this? I'm going mad. Is anyone else seeing this as well? Is anyone else getting this? You pull more people in, creates more demand. You pull more people in, creates more demand. We're always chasing tail for skills. Always skill shortages because there's so many people coming in that need these extra services done because we're not shutting the goddamn gates, mate. Well, what are we doing? Do you see that? Does that make sense to you? Our government needs to stop focusing on filling the gaps from people that they're importing and start to focus in on the citizens of this country, giving them the skills and the opportunities and incentives to actually fill the gaps ourselves. Let's draw from our home base. Let's not just keep pulling people in from overseas and create that perpetual loop of insanity where there's always going to be a demand if we can't build it from home. So step 1, remove junior wages for apprenticeships. Let's pay them the same as a mature-aged apprentice in the field. You know, just some rough Google checks. A mature-aged apprentice in Australia makes about $950 a week. A 16-year-old apprentice starting out, both first year, both starting out, is making somewhere between $500 to $600 per week. If you put a 16-year-old on $950 per week on today's standards for their first year in an apprenticeship, you're going to see an entire generation of kids excited to start a trade. You keep them on $500 to $600 and they think, I can't even pay rent, I can't even get a loan for a car, I can't do anything with this, got to stay with mum and dad's place for the next several years and can't build any independence. What's even the point when I can just go work at JB Hi-Fi and get paid twice as much? And for existing tradies saying they can't afford to pay a first year apprentice $950 a week, well, you're right. The government should do a heavier subsidy than current to allow that increase. It's an investment from the government for the future. Even if it was a 60% subsidy, they are going to make it back over the next several years from the income tax generated and the GST and the excise taxes from this young person's wage as they enter the workforce and they start to pay their tax, pay their dues to society. We'll move into the second part now, why apprentices are dropping out. And in my early 20s, I joined into the trades. I was working as a trades assistant. I was doing plastering, I was doing carpentry, I was doing painting, demolition work sometimes, just whatever needed to be done. The boss I had who was training me, he was hot-headed. He was yelling off his head all the time. He was screaming at people. He was having full-on tantrums constantly. He'd yell at me and say, mate, that's not good enough, do it again. And then he'd just walk off without explaining, what was wrong with it. I was just kind of be like, fuck, I don't know, what the fuck's wrong with it? And the thing is, every single job site that I worked on, I'd look around and I'd see younger people like me and people younger than me. Like I was early 20s, there was guys out on the site, 16, 17, starting out. And I was looking around and they were all getting the same treatment. Just these older guys, in their 30s, 40s, and sometimes 50s, just screaming their absolute heads off. And everyone's just kind of looking around like, what the fuck are we doing here? These guys are wankers. I just saw it everywhere. And the reality is there's a lot of tradesmen out there that have piss poor people management skills and they're terrible teachers. They don't know how to teach. They don't know how to take care of their staff. Guys in the trades, there's more than taking care of staff than just paying them on time. A lot of these guys I watched screaming around at people, yeah, they were adequate tradesmen. They were good at their trades. But the thing is, they couldn't teach. They had no qualifications to teach the younger generation on how to do the job. I remember clearly on one job I was doing, it was a fit out job, and I just plastered down a bunch of corners and I was sanding it off, hadn't sanded it off correctly, and a painter came up to me and he said, hey mate, these aren't sanded right. And instead of yelling at me and belittling me down and stuff like that, he pulled out the block himself and he said, what I do is I do it this way. And he showed me a couple of techniques, how to get it sanded down properly, which is something that my boss had never done before. He never took the time to actually explain techniques or the right ways to sand something or what to look for properly when you're sanding. He'd just throw blocks at me and say, sand it, get it done. And then he'd come back and yell at me because it's not sanded right, but never explained why it wasn't sanded right. But this painter took a little bit of time and explained it to me. And he was calm, he was collected, he had patience with me. And I really appreciated that. I was like, wow, someone's actually talking to me like a normal person on a job site for once. And then halfway through, just as I finally got the grasp of it, I was like, okay, cool. And I was thanking him for making sense. My boss comes across and he says, Chris, get out of the buckets, go clean out the buckets now, screaming at me. And I was like, oh, fuck you, all right, no worries, all right, now go, mate. And went out, and then as I was walking out, he turned to the painter, not his staff or anything like that, started screaming at him. He says, mate, if you got a problem with my work, you got a problem with my jobs or anything that my staff are doing, you come to me, you talk to me about it. You don't talk to him about it, you don't talk to anyone else about it, you come straight to me about it. He's my staff, I will tell him the work's not good enough, I'll explain to him what he needs to do, and right now he's out on the buckets, you don't talk to him again across this job. And this is kind of communication style around the workforce. And I was like, this is fucking stupid, man. He was just screaming at someone who actually genuinely helped me. And you know what? Every job moving forward, that technique that painter taught me on the sanding blocks, yeah, I did it over and over again. I never had any problems or complaints from my boss about it. But it just took someone who actually knew how to teach just a few minutes, and I picked up a skill that I could use over and over again. Across the year that I worked in this space, I spent 10 times more just lugging gyprock sheets up flights of stairs because they couldn't fit into the lifts than I actually spent learning how to do the basics of the job. I was just being workhorse, I was just being used for cheap labour. And then after a year, I realised that he was never actually going to start me on an apprenticeship. He just had me as a trades assistant on cheap labour for it as well. And I was like, yeah, he's not going to start me, mate, so I'm fucking out of here. It was just a waste of a year. And that got me off the trades, that turned me off the trades. From there, I just saw what it was like. I saw the toxicity around it all. And yeah, I know some job sites are much better than others. This one was just toxic, and it was just day in, day out sort of thing for a year. And yeah, it turned me off. And the issue is piss poor people management skills from the tradies that are taking on people, and just the education, which was absolute fucking rat's ass. So current state, half the apprentices are dropping out, and then 83% of those dropping out are bouncing straight back into other work. So they're young, they're keen to work right now. But aside from the pay, most of them are citing across other reasons. They are citing that it's unsafe work conditions, they are citing that it's toxic work environments, and they are citing that they're being used for cheap labour and not learning anything. Look, I'm talking out of school here, but if you are a master of your craft and you want to take on an apprentice to teach them the craft that you do for a living, that you do to make your ends meet in this world, well, you probably need to have some basic skills, not just from the craft, but along, I guess, some qualifications or basic training on how to teach the next generation coming through, because things have changed a lot over the last 50 to 100 years. It's not the same as it used to be. There should be a mandatory ticket or course, if you look at it that way, that a person who wants to take on an apprentice should have to go through. And you know, nothing complex or anything like that, just soft skills. Learning, when I say soft skills, guys, I'm not talking about mollycoddling or anything, but like learning how to talk and communicate with your apprentice. Learning certain, I guess, curriculum or things you need to teach them within the trade, just to check them off and stuff like that. Learning how to actually teach that to them. And very importantly, learning how to have your payroll set up right so you can pay these guys on time and not stuffing around an apprentice's pay. Look, I've heard countless tradies say that every apprentice they take on just can't hack it and they end up quitting. Well, and just take a second, guys, if every single apprentice that you take on is quitting, well, you are the common denominator. It's you who can't figure out how to teach, how to train these young people, because these young people are the future of your trade. So you need to be able to take that on, nurture them, teach them, grow them, because it's not just the future of your trade that you're teaching them, it's the future of this country. It's a burden that you need to take on yourself to make sure this country moves forward. You can't just treat them like shit. They're not just cheap labour. They've actually shown an interest themselves to step forward and apply to enter that trade. They've gone and tried to find you to sign up. They trusted you to become an apprentice, to learn the trade. So don't let them down. Do the right thing, because if your mindset as a master tradesman is to just use people as cheap labour, to treat them like shit, because you got picked on in your apprenticeship, you want to pass it down and pick on someone under, this learning from you, if you just want to pass it on, well, maybe you shouldn't take on an apprentice and leave it for someone who actually gives a shit and wants to see their trade continue to grow and help a young person get the foundations to actually succeed in this country. My thoughts around it that I've outlined here is that we should stop immigrating people in for our trades and start to focus on our home base. We should get rid of junior wages and incentivize young people to step in the trades. Give them a good start to life with their salary coming through, and have that subsidised by the government, because they're going to make it back on the excise, on the GST and on the income tax anyway over a few years, but subsidise their apprenticeship to boost it up, make it appealing to them. And for those that want to teach our next generation of tradies coming through, just to have some kind of safeguards around it for the young people coming in, just to make sure they actually know how to talk, they know how to train them, they know how to pay them, just to have that kind of stuff in place. And if it's a ticket or just a mini course you need to do to get it in place, so be it. But if you just want to workhorse the kids to death, if you just want to take advantage of them, not teach them, not train them or anything, and fuck them off on their third year and take it on another first year again just for cheap labour, well, mate, you shouldn't be doing it in the first place, okay? You shouldn't be taking on an apprenticeship. You're failing the duty of care for our next generation, so go fuck yourself if you're doing that. We just need some accountability and some responsibility around it, because it's our future. Our trades are our future in this country, so we should start to give a shit about it. We start to focus on it and start to make sure that we're doing it right. Anyway, guys, what's your thoughts? Leave them down below in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.